We're at the halfway point of the Champions League round one tie. An incredible night in Tolka Park last Wednesday night saw Shels take a 1-0 lead as they head to Windsor Park next Wednesday for probably one of the biggest games in the club's recent history. Tolka Park looked magnificent. The Reds turned up. Dunny was there, turned up in his finest as always. But Dunny, after a fairly impressive performance, can I start on a slightly sour note? Have Shels slightly left the door open? Could they have finished off the tie last Wednesday?
Andy, you can't be starting on such a downer. I was going to come in hot. I was going to say I'm hydrated, caffeinated, Champions League motivated. Well, look, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the performance was good enough that it warranted a larger margin of victory. And I think if anyone had looked through any of the comments from Linfield fans and so on online, all that I'd seen anyway, they were pretty happy with a 1-0 defeat. That the margin was kept to 1, and they feel that leaves them very much in the tie, and it's hard to argue. But I suppose if you wanted to say that the glass was half full, then the performance was good, and us knowing, us being in no two minds about the task at hand, then having the margin be that narrow should see us with sort of clear minds and focused heading into this Wednesday second leg.
Well, let's park that now. Let's talk about the good stuff. It was a very special night, Dunny. The place looked amazing. The passion. It was a hot summer's evening. And as I said, from the word go, Shels really turned up. Harry Wood, exceptional in my eyes. Evan Caffrey, full of energy. I don't really want to pick out any specific performer because I thought they all played their part. But that was really what we talked about last week, wasn't it? Fast start, high tempo, and Linfield were struggling for large parts of the game.
Very much so, yeah. We set the tempo straight away, and it's something that we discussed in the preview with Barry and yourself, that was the start going to be crucial. And I suppose even though we didn't get an early goal, it was in many ways the tone being set straight out the gate. It forced Linfield on the back foot immediately, and they never really managed to get a foothold in the game after that. They had periods where they were less defensive, obviously, but in general they didn't amount much of an attacking threat. So yeah, we sort of, I thought that the first half was some of the best football we've played in a while, and on another night maybe we go in at half time 2-0 up, but then we went in level pegging at half time, and you don't always get what you deserve in this game, as we have seen all too often this season. So just to be able to get a result, and very importantly obviously keep a clean sheet, which we've discussed on here, obviously being as rare as hen's teeth this season, was very pleasing. So the margin could have been better, but like everything else under the Joey O'Brien era so far, the performance really was key, and the performance was very encouraging.
We've received a huge amount of questions and comments, Tony, so I'm going to sprinkle them in as we go.
No problem.
Vincent Byrne, we're now playing to our potential, and we can go all the way next week. Meepo was improving with every game. It's all to play for. I agree. Well said, Vincent. And Jared Corcoran, probably the best Shels performance this season. Joey is getting much more from the players now. It's a pity we didn't score a second. Is Joey getting more from those players, Dunny? Or is it just a case, I think we touched on this last week, is it just a case that the players maybe feel just a little bit of a refresh across the whole club?
Well, I think one can lead directly to the other, and that's kind of what we're seeing, I think. And look, again, we have to be wary that the sample size is small, but you go off what you see, and I think it's pretty universally agreed upon from the people that I've been speaking with, that in the wake of Wednesday and the game so far, that the players seem to be approaching things with a bit more vim and vigor, a little bit more of an attacking mindset, which is akin to sort of being, the sporting equivalent of being a bit carefree, of being a bit more spontaneous and willing to take chances. So I think we were underperforming. I think that's not really in question as a unit, and I think we are getting more out of that unit now under Joey O'Brien so far. Frankly, I still think there's probably more in there. Um, there's and had we gone in, 2-0 up on Wednesday and then scored again in the second half, a 3-0 kind of result might have been, then you go, okay, well, this is what we're absolutely capable of. But if we cleaned up a few things, I think you could see even more out of this panel.
Question here from Dave Hurley. Dave, thank you. A massive win on Wednesday. Meepo is in fantastic form. What do you put down his improvement to? Now, I actually don't think Meepo's improved. I just think he's starting to take a few chances. I think he's worked his socks off all year. And of course, when you don't get the chances, when you're the lone man up front and people need to take their anger out in somewhere, they always take it out maybe on the front man. But has Meepo improved?
Well, a bit like buses or sort of advances in height, it can come in spurts. And he's got 3-3 now. So you could say, well, he's played better in the last 3 games, but I'd be inclined to agree with you, Andy, that there's not a huge amount that he's doing out on the field that's massively different. I don't think you could argue realistically that he's giving more of an effort now, that he's trying harder, or he's running more, or he's, I'd say if you looked at the data from his GPS or whatever, I'd be shocked to see that he was covering more ground, for example, or doing more sprints than he had been earlier in the season. What I think maybe has happened is this sort of intangible thing that we're trying to talk about under Joey, that people are feeling a bit more self-empowered to play and being given maybe a bit of an attaboy and an arm around the shoulder rather than a kick in the arse. So and that's not to do Damien Duff down, but it did feel that the weight of the world were on a lot of players' shoulders and the manager himself, as we discussed on here. But I think he's getting his just rewards, frankly. And look, I've been spending most of today driving around from place to place, and I was listening to a message from Tyg Brennan just a few moments ago. There seems to be a lot of vloggers and bloggers who were at the match on Wednesday, and Tyg was telling me that he was watching one of them, and there was a lad screaming and roaring abuse at Meepo, saying, "Get him off, he's rubbish, he's useless," and then in the next frame, leaping around like his shoes are on fire because Meepo's put us ahead and won us the game, So, like, some people, I don't know what it'll take, but if you're still there, he scored 2-2. That made it 3-3, and if you're still there roaring abuse at him, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I think he's doing a lot of the same things, and sometimes they just fall for you. The goal that he got on another day, maybe dribbles wide. It wasn't the cleanest connection he'll ever make on a football, but I think he's getting his just rewards. And again, we saw he was pretty ineffective in the first half, but I wouldn't have put that down to him so much. We did a lot of good things in the first half, but that sort of low block, as they say now, that Linfield were employing, made it very, very hard for the lone man up there. He was just kind of wedged in amongst a wall of defenders, and most of our attacks came from wide areas and runners from deep. So when you stuck Sean Boyd up next to him, and suddenly the defenders are a bit more spread apart and have multiple issues to worry about at once, we got the rewards there. So I think Meepo's been playing pretty well, and long may it continue.
Well, Shels got off to a flyer, really. When you look at it, we love our stats here, Donny. 74% possession, I believe, in the whole game. We had 5 corners in the first 20 minutes, 9 in total in the first half. Again, if I'm being a little bit critical, did we just lack a bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just something a bit unique about our set plays. Was just each one just seemed to be a little bit samey.
A bit of
And when
variety.
variety, excuse me, yeah, it's that word staring me in the face, Sonny. But yeah, variety. But it's just we had a question in there which I'll pull up shortly about that. When you have so much possession, particularly from corner kicks, at this high level, do we need to have something up our sleeve? Because just flinging it into the box sometimes works. I know we did flick I think it was Evan Caffrey, perhaps someone we flicked a header off the crossbar, but that was from an incredibly tight angle. Do we just need to be a bit more open to different ideas, or am I just being too unfair on the team?
I don't think so, Andy. There's sort of two things at play there at once. I think that 70 odd percent possession stat was probably for the first half
Sure,
alone.
sure, yeah.
It actually evened out way more than I thought. Actually, I went back and looked at the numbers, and 59-41 was the final tally possession wise. But of course, Linfield did have more of the ball when we changed shape second half, because we basically coughed up a body in midfield to put Sean Boyd up top with Meepo, and they didn't really have possession in areas of danger so much. Their biggest chance really just in the whole match came from a kick that was blocked down from Conor Kern. So the other thing, so possession, and we've seen it. Look, I kind of thought they might do it. There was a few things in the preview that I thought came to pass. The long throws, we did see some of them when they got close to our goal. They didn't get close enough, even with throw-ins, to have many of them, but they did have a couple of long throws into the box to test us out under the high ball. They did target Mark Coyle aerially, early and often from goal kicks and from all set pieces. But and they did sit in very much like a Drogheda early in the season, whereby they were happy to contain, and if they had a chance, well and good, but they weren't going to break their necks trying to stretch us or anything like that. So that's one thing, and trying to probe and prod and whatever. Ultimately, I think that worked out very well in for Joey O'Brien, that he made a change before the hour mark, and the change immediately led to the goal that won the game. But the corners is another thing, and that's almost a separate, like in American football, they call it special teams, where like ball goes dead and it's up to you to try and outsmart the opposition. And we have been terrible at this for a long time now. And you and I have discussed it on here. As long as we've been in the Premier Division since our last promotion, we have been very, very bad in this area, attacking wise, and I'm not massively sure why. It's like you said, to have 9 corners in the first half, and the first one I think led to that attempt off the bar, the sort of angle of post and bar, and then I think we had 11 corners in total, and the keeper really was never trouble with any of them. So that's a point worth dwelling on, I think, going forward. That's definitely an area where the club and the team could stand to make significant gains, I think.
Thank you, Donny. It was Noel Conway. Noel, thanks. You sent in that question, and you did include the word variety, even though I completely blanked it there. And Noel also sent in the question, Donny, also regarding improvements in our throw-ins from throw-ins in a way or a set piece. Noel says the majority of them, within 10 seconds we've given the ball away again. Now we may need to double check that, but I think overall, look, Tolka is a tight little place. They even narrowed the pitch again a bit further. Trust me, Dunny and I have had the privilege of playing on the hallowed turf. When you're down there, it's a lot different from what it looks like when you're up in the stands. So perhaps the dimensions were slightly against Shels, but throw-ins, Dunny, is that a chat for another day?
I think you might be onto something with the narrow touchline, and of course, when a team is dropping so many players into their own half, they've choked that area of the field. We probably could have gone backwards with more success than going forwards with throw-ins. So I'd give him a pass on that one. But yeah, certainly. But I've said it many times that set pieces, be it free kicks or corners, our conversion rates from them are absolutely terrible. So I know Sligo Rovers, for example, and maybe it's a poor example to bring up, but they hired and fired a set piece coach in this current season. I know some other League of Ireland Premier Division clubs have set piece coaches. I don't think that would be a terrible idea for us because we're now into year 4, and for all of the really, really, really good coaching that it's clear that the team have gotten, this is an area where there are gains to be made, and frankly, we're not even keeping pace with the teams that are lower in the division than us when it comes to goals from set pieces. And I suppose if you want to pivot from that slightly, I have another stat regarding set pieces of the penalty variety, that we have now gone 27 competitive games in 3 different competitions this season with 0 penalties. We can thank VAR for that historic moment of the first VAR call in Tolka Park going against us, and yeah, denying us our first penalty in 27 games. So I doubt it's a record, but it's a hell of a long time to not get one penalty decision. When we're generally in matches and scoring goals in most games, it's a long time to go without a penalty.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that one, Tony. That's going on quite a while now. So I think, as I said earlier, Linfield really looked like the steam was blown out their ears after 25, 30 minutes. They're in their pre-season, and you cannot substitute match fitness for any other type of fitness. But just my own view, I thought Linfield actually played a very smart game. They sat back, they let Shels have a lot of the possession. And if we're fair and we actually break it down, Shels didn't really break the back line of Linfield. They had the unbelievable chance from Evan Caffrey with the header. But I think besides the tempo, the aggression we showed, I think we were clearly a better team. We looked fitter, looked stronger, looked more conditioned to me. But if we're honest, I don't think we really threatened them with direct attempts. A lot of deflections for corners and so on, which was positive. But my question is, Donny, after all that's done and dusted, will David Healy be content with his team's display and the results, more importantly?
I think he will. He's said as much, but I don't think it's bluster. I think the way that the fixtures have fallen, whereby they are at home in the second leg, which sort of historically that would be viewed as the advantage to the team who gets to play at home last, knowing what they have to do. Certainly, given the dynamic of in season, out of season, it'll give them an extra week and so on. And I think what he would have not wanted to happen was, let's say the fixture order was reversed, that they're coming a week earlier, playing in front of their home fans against us, where I think he would have felt they might have been obliged to attack a little bit more, to show a little bit more about them in the endeavour to pursue a goal in front of their own fans in Belfast. Having it away from home and to put in that sort of defensive block, backs to the wall performance actually worked out very nicely for them. Now, I'm sure at half time he was thinking, this is job half done here. We're, another 45 minutes like this, we get out of here with a 0-0. That is an unbelievable result. We'll have another week's worth of training and planning and so on in the tank, and then bring it up to Belfast and get the crowd behind them and whatever. So it didn't quite work out fully for him, but he almost got the sort of perfect result and performance. Now they didn't show much ambition. We did say that last week that it probably wasn't, or whenever the last pod was earlier this week, that it was unlikely to be one for the purists regarding a pure entertainment spectacle, and so it proved it wasn't for the lack of Shelburne trying. But again, away from home, that kind of performance is a lot more tolerated and understandable in the grander scheme of things as in context. So I think he'll be very happy. The question lies for me: how prepared are they going to be to have a go on Wednesday? 90 minutes is a long time. They only need one to potentially bring it to extra time. I don't think if you offered it to them now, extra time at Pennos, they'd probably take it. I think they'd take the supposed lottery at Pennos. Hopefully he hasn't been doing any googling of how Shelburne FC traditionally do when it comes to Penno shootouts, because he might just play for Pennos from the first whistle if that was the case. But in my head, I'm thinking this might suit us up in Windsor Park, where they have to be a bit more expansive, show a bit more ambition, and go for us, leaving gaps for our pacier players and our more skillful players to cut through them on the counter. But I just wonder how long he'll play the kind of game of chicken tactically, where he might want to just keep it at 1 until the hour mark, 70 minutes even, and then try and do something a bit different from the bench possibly. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we had actually that question came in from Jerry Knowles. Jerry was asking, did Linfield play the perfect away game? So I think we've covered that one, Jerry. Thank you. A few questions here, Donny, from across the Reds landscape. Did we see a Jekyll and Hyde Shels display first half versus second half? From Ryan Dunn.
Well, I'd be inclined to say, like, if you were going to show your mate how did Shels get on against Linfield, would you have shown them the first half or the second? You'd probably show them the first, because it was a bit more, the as you said, the corners, the pressure, the big chance missed, the penalty decision given and then taken away, the header off the crossbar, etc. But there's an irony there in that, well, the goal, for all that good stuff, the goal came around the hour mark, right? So a Jekyll and Hyde, if that's the case, then Mr. Hyde popped up with the winner. So I'll be I don't care if we're the beauty or the beast. So that the beauty first half possibly, but it was the beast that got the job done. So I understand the thrust of the question, but ultimately if we'd had two halves like the first, we would have come away ruining a bunch of missed chances. So thank God for the Hyde.
Yep, very true. This one's right up your street, Dunny, from Eamon. I've heard a lot of people say that the bigger Windsor Park pitch will suit Shels. Is there any data to support this?
That's a fantastic question. Yeah, I didn't know that was good. That's actually bang on. I'm always, it's just the skeptic and the pedant in me possibly, but I'm always a bit skeptical when these broader narratives just spring out.
Yeah, where do they come from? I've heard it everywhere the last 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The pitch will suit Shels.
The pitches, the wider pitches suit Shelburne. And then when that just gets passed around like a doobie at a Snoop Dogg concert and everyone has a puff and says the same thing, it's like, well, I'm not sure where you're getting the evidence for this. So again, as men of science, Andy, I don't think there is data to support that. I think maybe what might be inferred by it, and something I'd be more inclined to get on board with, is that the width of the pitch would allow fitter, more dynamic players room to maneuver, whereas Tolka was the opposite of that, a reasonably narrow pitch by professional standards, narrowed even more, and then against a team who didn't have much ambition to come out and be open and take chances on the ball. So that's a very compressed game, and I think it's pretty likely that we will have a less compressed, more open game purely dimension wise and probably tactically as well, as we touched on. So I don't think we're going to see, Dan Kelly herring like down the wing, like dogs at Shelburne racetrack, and no one been able to catch him or anything like that. I think it'll just be when you go wide, you're going to create spaces inside for people to, you'd like to think that Harry and Ali Coote and so on, when they get on the ball, that they won't have someone banging into the side or the back of them in under a second in Windsor Park, because there might be just that bit more room in general. Now, that can work anyway. That can be more to Linfield's advantage as well, as they go looking for a goal. So I'm always a bit wary of these overgeneralizations. Particularly the system, although I do prefer, as we've discussed, Joey's sort of tweaking of the former system. We don't play with orthodox wingers. We have wide players, and we do employ with even more so now since Joey has taken over, I would argue. But I disagree with the narrative being very black and white and binary like that.
Okie doke. A lot of comments in, Tony, about the match night atmosphere. It was very special. I was on the main stand with some of the old fogies. I'm getting to that age bracket now, but looking across to the riverside, it was wonderful. Comment here from Paul Byrne. Thanks, Paul. The media, Paul says, the media on Wednesday night's game, it was understated how good the atmosphere and pageantry, particularly of the riverside, was. Are the media perhaps giving the League of Ireland a disservice by ignoring it? We also had a comment in from Brian Curran along the same lines. Brian said that, I'll pull up Brian's comment now. Brian was very complimentary. He said, credit to everyone involved on Wednesday night. Everyone played their part. Tolka Park looked stunning. Fans brought the energy, and the lads responded. Tony, how was your match night experience, just from your own point of view?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it's absolutely worth taking a moment to congratulate and thank the boys 1895 and Brigad Darragh and everybody who put out the flags, who orchestrated it, who took the time out, prior to Wednesday evening, and who were in early on Wednesday evening to make it go off so well. Oftentimes, when you're in the middle of these displays, you can't wait to see photographs of them from the main stand side or wherever it may be to see what you were a part of. But even on Wednesday, just with the sheer volume of flags that were there, it was pretty clear, despite being sort of in the middle of it all, that it was very special. Just seeing the flags absolutely all over the place. It was really, really excellent. I've seen a few St. Patrick's Athletic fans trying to and look, more power to their elbow, to big up their own display from the following night. But I think as always, BD and boys put them in the halfpenny place. But yeah, it was really great. The atmosphere, people were in good form. There wasn't a huge amount of nerves. The fan zone was open early, and it was very, very full. A lot of ex-Dublin players around. I spotted 4 or 5 from through the years, including Ger Brennan, who's recently stepped down as Louth manager, having won the Leinster title. So yeah, obviously the atmosphere was fantastic, and Barry Crossan had mentioned it on here during the week that we might have to be patient and stick with them. And despite a lot of near misses, there was no, from where we were anyway, no agitation or people kind of getting fed up or losing patience with the team, which is great to see. I've heard it anecdotally that Sean Boyd and some of the substitutes were pretty gobsmacked at the scale of the display and how great it was as they were walking across the pitch as well. So I know Stewie Byrne had mentioned as well, and Tolka in general. I think Neil Doyle and everybody who was working to get Tolka looking so good. It is really a shame when when you're kind of putting these big events on, Champions League nights, with one arm tied behind your back, having stadium restrictions and stuff that you can't really do anything about. And but they took on the challenge, and they made Tolka look as good as I've seen it in many, many, many years. So yeah, credit to everybody. And look, we deserved it, and as a club, we deserved it. As a fan base, we deserved it. And I was just really, really pleased at the end of the evening that, from Meepo to be the one to get the goal, the night to go off, safely. And everyone who paid in, I think, really got their value for money, and the place looked great. So, absolutely wins all around, which was really, really excellent to see.
Nights like them, Dunny, the last time I felt that sort of emotion was last November when I was in Tolka watching us win the league on the big screens. It's always an emotional time I sort of myself think back of people who are no longer with us, who've come on this very long journey. And I know this weekend is very poignant for yourself and your colleagues, for Emmett Connolly's 3-year anniversary. And I know Emmett means so much to many people, as to many of the Reds who weren't there on Wednesday night, but they were certainly there in spirit. Nights like them are what makes this club special, Dunny.
Yeah, Sandy, nice of you to say. Yeah, I just before we came on air here, Andy, I was with his family and friends down at the graveyard 3 years today. And I was telling you before we started, you just 3 years is when it comes to the football club and looking at life through that prism, so many things have happened in that time that I really wish Emo had stuck around to see, but Liam and Lisa, his parents, have come down. They're at every home game now, and are absolutely, that's all they wanted to talk about when I spoke with them earlier. His brother and sister's the same, and yeah, it's I know he won't be forgotten, and the lads have been great with displays and so on for him in the past. I know Lee Daly lost his father this time 3 years ago as well. It was a tough week for everybody, and look, it's not just I know there are people as well whose names I wouldn't know who would have lost people in the interim period as well, and that's why when you hit these landmarks, whether it was last year in Gibraltar or nights like Wednesday, where you feel it sort of extra, that little bit extra than normal. And I said it to you the last time I saw Mo was in Tolka Park. We'd just beaten Finn Harps 3-1. The final whistle had gone, and it basically meant that we were safe, and we weren't going to get dragged into a relegation playoff or anything. I think I was playing a music festival the next day, so I didn't go across to the pub with him. He gave me a hug and said he'd see me soon, and that was it. So Tolka is special to so many people for so many reasons, but nights like Wednesday, they don't come around often. So it was extra special to seal it with a win, and to keep that 20-year home European record intact as well was extra special, extra sweet.
Thank you, Dunny. Well said. Now, one man who's been working incredibly hard in recent weeks is Club SLO, John Brennan. John and his lovely wife are expecting a child any day now. So I caught up with John earlier, just regarding the arrangements for Wednesday in Windsor Park, just more out of interest for myself. So, Dunny, there's 8 club buses going, 6 independent buses going. People probably going by planes, trains, and automobiles. But I think the allocation is just over 1,300, and it promises to be a very special day. So all I can say, just for myself, anyone going up, is to enjoy it and keep your head down and follow police directions. I believe there shouldn't be any issues from travelling there, but let's just get behind the Reds. That's all we can do, and I'm sure we'll be making a hell of a racket, and this could potentially be one of the biggest games in the most recent history of the club. The nerves will be kicking in now Tuesday morning, Dunny, for me anyway, but let's wait and see how it goes.
Yeah, I kind of when listening to you there, Andy, I was thinking of that Neil Warnock clip that's become a meme. Enjoy it, but enjoy it by being effing disciplined. uh, but so yeah, look, it has all of the makings to be one for the ages. Um, I just hope, I do. I just hope it works out in our favor, of course. But yeah, fair play to everybody who's paid their money for the buses, who's logged on to get their tickets. Obviously, basically everybody who has is probably a season ticket holder as well. So these are the people who deserve to get their hands on the tickets and to enjoy events like these. So, and obviously, yeah, most private bus companies didn't want to touch this event with a barge pole. So fair play to the club for assisting in being able to provide buses for the big crowd that are travelling up.
More questions, Dunny, to throw your way. Comes from Robert. Have Shels showed their hand to David Healy? I presume he's saying because Shels threw everything at them, they couldn't quite do the damage they would have hoped. But have Shels got a few tricks up their own sleeve?
That's a tricky one. I mean, look, David Healy's done his homework. We know this. He went on record to say that he enjoys the League of Ireland. He watches a lot of League of Ireland, and yourself, Andy, you were sat close to him at the Derry match recently, and he's certainly done his due diligence on us. So on top of the sort of video analysis and everything like that, there isn't really any secrets left in Christendom anymore when it comes to opposition. So the sense of did we throw the kitchen sink and only just squeak by? I don't think that really holds water because, as I said, effectively a large part of the game was an exercise in backs and forwards. Like a training ground exercise. 11v11. So, I mean, we have decisions to make about at what point, whether from the start or subsequently, do we deploy two up front? There's an argument about how attacking do you want to play your wing backs. There's an argument about where you play Mark Coyle. Does Sean Gannon come back into the team? That type of thing. But ultimately, I think the biggest change in dynamic is going to have to be Linfield's approach, and David Healy's going to have to be more worried about how he imposes himself on us rather than the other way around, I think. And what I'm hopeful of is that when they have to be a bit more adventurous, that will, as we've alluded to, that will leave spaces for us to do damage that we couldn't really do on Wednesday because they simply had too many bodies between us and the goal. So I think the change in dynamic of the match will allow us to have hopefully more clear-cut opportunities and hopefully score at least one more goal. Just listening to myself and sort of teasing through these sort of potential eventualities, I am immediately hit with the idea of Jesus Christ, nobody get it sent off. So, don't do anything daft. I mean, that's one thing. If you want to tilt the balance of something fine and marginal like this in one team's favour, even if they're not expected to prevail, someone going full James English from 2018 and decapitating a man inside the first 10 minutes and sending them to hospital half dead would be very ill-advised. So, again, maybe let's bring it back to the Neil Warnock meme and let's enjoy it, but please, on the pitch, let's be effing disciplined as well. And I think 11v11, we have every chance. My friend Niall Creevy threw me a stat this morning about our chances of progressing, and according to the bookies, we're up beyond 70% likelihood to progress through the tie now, which gave a bit of a shudder to me early in the day, because obviously, it says prior to the first leg, the bookies had us at about 52% likelihood of
Saw
getting
that,
through the
yeah.
tie,
Yeah.
and we're now up at around 73%. So
Yeah.
um,
Well, that,
let's not dive into the sea of hubris just yet. But if we keep ourselves right and stay disciplined and play to our potential, I think we shouldn't have too much to fear.
yeah, well, that shows just how critical, even though we only got the one goal, having a lead going into this game makes such a difference in my view. Because Linfield, whether they have to go gung ho or whether they just try and be patient and try and get themselves back into the game, that does give Joey and the lads a slightly perhaps more of options as to how they approach it. As you said, Donny, the so-called bigger pitch may come into effect, but does the game now for Shels tactically, I think, will be fine. But does the main challenge now become slightly more psychological? Because it's, to me, there's echoes slightly of the game up in Derry last November. We knew what we had to do. We knew basically we had to win. Otherwise, it was good night Vienna. Now, we don't have to win up in Windsor, but you still go out with that mindset. Look, we're not just going to see how it pans out. We're going to take it to them. We're going to dominate as much as possible rather than just trying to perhaps manage the game and see how it pans out. Because realistically, at some point, Linfield are going to create a couple of chances.
They will. I think we have to be prepared for that for sure. And look, in a defender's mindset, I think there's an element of between the defenders and the goalkeeper who are selected to start. You got to be like, lads, if we do our effing job, we win this game regardless of what happens. If we can, nil draw wins the tie. So I know on some level, defenders do, the right type of defenders with the right attitude do relish tasks like that, where you're like, there's nothing more enjoyable than a 1-0 win for a defender. Now, it won't be easy, but I think the likes of Paddy Barrett and Cam and co would feel that they can do that. Regarding the mentality of everybody else, I think I like Joey's kind of analysis of breaking down games into the four sort of quadrants, the four quarters, that and managing them that way. And I think maybe that's a good way of approaching it. In that, like, I hope he would be very direct and specific to certain areas, of play, and being like, this is what we're going to do if this happens, and this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going. These are our sort of our goals for this period of the game. And sort of manage it accordingly, because you can't get too nebulous and too caught up into the ideas of the what ifs and the what fors, of what could happen. So it'll be a test of our mettle for sure. And look, like you said, Linfield know what they have to do. They have to score two goals on the night to win outright, or a minimum of one, and takes Shelburne to dreaded penalties. So it's a bit more straightforward for them, and on some level that might make it easier. But as we've discussed, they might have to be a bit reckless at times the longer they go without getting that. If we hit them for one, if we get one before they do, and again, we can't be reckless, but if we manage to do that, that would be fantastic, obviously. And I think that could knock the stuffing out of them. You know what I mean? If you land before they do, and now they're in a situation where they need two just to bring it to extra time, I think that would sort of really, really flip the dynamic in a way that might be irretrievable for them. But you have to play it as it lies. So I hope that we would have the mentality. And look, most of these players would have been in that game, as you said, Andy, last year up in Derry, and shown that they have mentality of winners, and they have mentality of professionals who know how to deal with big occasions and so on. So I'd like to think, under the sort of scrutiny that they've come under lately, this is a really good test of their mettle. And like, listening to the way Mark Coyle and so on has been speaking, I think he feels that maybe some of the narrative around why the previous manager left was a bit was pointing the finger at their professionalism and their application and so on. So like, if you ever want to prove yourself, this is a good platform to go and do it and give the club one of the biggest wins in its history.
A question here from Steve, which I probably should have asked 10 minutes ago, Dunny, but he says, was I the only one who noticed an immediate parking of the bus after Meepo's goal on 60 minutes? Well, now, and I don't think we parked the bus. We've our favourite phrase, Dunny, game management. Was there a sort of an automatic, you'd sort of just take an extra step back mentality without even thinking? Or do you think Joey may have said something, look, we just need to book the, clock this in now as a 1-0 and get out of here? But parking the bus, I wouldn't agree with that.
No, and I mean, maybe he might be being a bit facetious there, but I think the ambition that we showed following the goal certainly didn't suggest that we were going to go mad for getting a second. We had a couple of half chances, but nothing like the first half, obviously. And there was some point where I turned around to whoever was next to me at the time and I said, look, it looks like we've basically settled for this now. And I kind of understood that. I thought the 3 subs made on the 56th minute, bringing Tyreek, Dan Kelly and Sean Boyd, obviously, with the assist on, actually had very good impacts on the game. Tyreek, obviously, if he had hit a shot with a bit less crispness, if he had the shot that he had into the keeper's midriff, if he had sort of sliced across that a bit more, he might have had a chance of wrapping it into the top corner on the near side. But I thought they influenced the game very positively, the three of them. I have to say now, I don't think Wood was taken off because I think there might be a bit of just player management there. He had a knock previously, and he'd obviously had a very good game. I was very disappointed with Ellis Chapman, and I'd just come out and say it. I thought when he came on, we got worse. And in a game like, he's had ups and downs this season and whatnot, but like in a game of such importance, to come on, a guy with skill and ability like him, they could only dream of, to have someone like that at Linfield, someone with his raw ability. I thought he gave nothing. He gave away free kicks. He got booked. It was his foul that led to the free, which was the last play of the game. Which, if that had been a better delivery and someone gets on the end of it and they get a smash and grab, you'd be absolutely sick and you'd be tearing your hair out. So, unfortunately, on paper, that should have been a change that might have seen us exert a bit more control and have some more chances on goal, and it sort of backfired. And he was anonymous at best, and at worst, he was giving them opportunities to come into the game. So, park the bus, I wouldn't agree with, but we did kind of lose our way a little. Is kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at there, and that. Look, John Martin had a half chance. Boyd had a header that realistically maybe should be hitting the target with as well. He hasn't scored a goal since the opening night of the season, by the way, Andy.
He looks a bit rusty to me still, doesn't he? That's probably the word I'd describe. He had the sort of near post flick as well, which I think went over the bar.
Yeah.
But again, he's getting into those positions, but it's going to take a few weeks for him probably to get that sharpness back.
Yeah, look, he could score 2 or on Wednesday coming, but yeah, the stats aren't great there. I know he's been injured for a long time. His participation rate isn't great in injury profile wise the last couple of years either. So look, God bless Meepo and his 7 goals, because we've needed every one of them this year. They've been in 7 different games, so every single one of them has given us points, or in this case, given us an advantage in this very important tie. So I don't think we'll be seeing, hopefully, too much bus parking other than the 14 aforementioned buses coming up on Shelburne Travel on the day.
Yep, all safely parked up on Boucher Road and Apollo Road, I believe. Now, Donny, we mentioned last week with Barry, the Shels this year have given up the odd chance here and there, and I think it's worth saying that on reflection, when I look back at the game, we did give up one or two chances. Morrison, the guy with his lovely highlights, he probably could have done a bit better. He had a little chance to lob or to dink. Connor Cairns didn't quite get hold of it. It just shows that you just cannot switch off for a second at this level. Playing against a Linfield team, which I think people have unfairly slated as being not match fit and not conditioned. I think David Healy will use all these little tidbits as ammunition to riot his players up. But as we said a little earlier, I'm sure we'll have to face up to some stiff challenges on Wednesday night. Now, Dunny, as I was scarpering up Grace Park Road on Wednesday to get out of there before any possible shenanigans, I heard some fella talking to, I presume he was a son. He said that the hard part is done now. And now I don't know what game he was watching because, like, that's absolute madness. It's half time really in a 50-50 tie. The hard part is done. Is this guy out in the sun too long?
It might be his second year following the Reds. I don't know. Well, look, God bless the optimist. I wish I could have a bit more of that inherently in my DNA, in my soul, Andy. But the hard part. Well, look, the job's half done. He might have been borrowing from the Irish phrase "too small lad in a hibra," which literally translates to a good start is half the work. Not the majority of the work, but 50%. And look, it is that. And you said they had one shot on target. We had 5. We had 14 shots in total. They had 2. Some of our shots may have ended up out on Grace Park Road or the Richmond Road alongside you. It might have been bobbling down the road as you were leaving, Andy. I'm not sure, but ultimately, like there was very little for Connor to do in goal. I think he'll be busier on Wednesday coming. I think we'll have a bit more defending to do, but that's okay. I'd like to see, personally, we had 2 defenders on the bench who didn't get a minute of game time. I did predict prior to the match that the fact that we hadn't seen Lewis Temple against Cork would suggest that we weren't going to see him in the starting lineup, and so it proved. I am disappointed that he and Sam Bone are sitting presumably fit on the bench while we play with a system effectively with 5, supposedly 5 defenders, and we've got a midfielder playing right side centre back. I'm not sure people have given me a few ideas of what their thoughts are on that. Some say that because he's Mark Hoyle's captain that Joey wouldn't want to drop him, but he's happy with how JJ Lunny and Cara McInroy are playing, so he doesn't want to break that duo up. If that's the case, I think we need to be a bit more mature about the situation and realize what's at stake. I wouldn't be picking anyone based on whether they have an armband or don't. I think Mark himself would be big enough to accept a manager's decision if he thought someone else was better suited, particularly in something that's so pivotal to the club. So I would hope now we should have Sean Gannon, whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday, Sean. Same age as myself, 44, going strong. And we have Sam Bone and we have Lewis Temple, 3 capable defenders. I hope that when we line out on Wednesday that we're not back to this square peg and round hole situation, which we all know Mark Hoyle would take a bullet for the team and would play anywhere, but we did see how that worked out in the very recent past over a period of time, and that was when injuries were an issue. I just don't see any real logic behind continuing to play someone there when you have more than capable deputies, I think, waiting in the wing. So we might see Sean Gannon come in, and I'd be quite happy to see Mark Cole start in the centre of midfield on Wednesday. if that was a move that was made by management.
Any eagle-eyed Reds, mate? I don't know if you saw it, Tony. Just towards the end, Coyle and Dan Kelly had a little bit of verbals, which was, you see how fired up they were. Reminded me of the old, was it Lee Bowyer, Kieran Dyer scuffle at
Yeah,
Newcastle many,
at
many
Newcastle.
moons ago.
Well, thankfully, I mean, Jesus
Didn't come to
Christ,
blows.
yeah, but they both got straight red cards for that. And the jersey ripped off. Johnny Watson wouldn't want anyone
No,
tearing the front of the jerseys off either.
no.
That's a fine for sure. Yeah, no, I saw that. It's been. I can't remember the last time that would have happened to Shels. It might have been back to the bad old days of the Alan Matthews
Oh,
mob that he assembled in 2013. But
just quickly moving on. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, fighting amongst themselves, fighting with fans, but unfortunately not fighting to stay up.
Swiftly moving on. Thank you, Tony. I believe Johnny Watson allows the players to cut their socks now because their calf muscles are just so big and strong that the socks have to be cut. Another fad. But one man who's not a fad, Donny. I could see Joey O'Brien. He was close to me for the match. He was he went through the emotions. There's a huge game for him. Let's not forget that. This was probably the pinnacle of his young managerial career. I could see him going through the emotions. He was relaxed, and then he was very animated, and then he went through, got very tense. Has Joey impressed you so far with how he's handled the last 3 weeks with everything that's gone on?
He really has. And I'm not just saying that. I genuinely feel that way. He was very honest and sort of to the point when he first sort of took interim charge, if you like, for the two away games in Waterford and Galway. And since then, he's looked pretty comfortable in front of the camera, largely, I would say. And as I touched upon earlier in the week, I think, Andy, on the last pod, I like his ability to shut down the stuff that he doesn't want to engage with. He's been asked questions by the media. Obviously, a lot of them would be somewhat reflective back on how he ended up in the hot seat and so on. And if he's talking to Damien now, and did he get any advice from other managers and so on. And look, if he wants to answer, he'll answer, but he's not afraid to say that it's not even about that. It's about and insert whatever narrative he wants to talk about, which I think is healthy. It gotten to the point, and maybe it's just a change. I'm finding the change quite refreshing, because it had gotten to the point previously with Damien Duff that he was the headline so often that you'd wake up to text him like, "Oh, did you see the interview?" or "What you think of this?" And it was kind of everything was being clipped and memed and recycled and across all platforms and so on. And it got to the point, it was a little bit of overkill, I thought, and we touched upon it here when we sort of looked at the ashes of his time with us, and it did. I did say that I felt he was taking on too much and trying to fight the whole world, and everything became kind of across the bear and a point of contention. And some of the things that got Duff so on side with the media was his willingness to go down these unexplored avenues and talk about his own personal life and his own feelings and say things he wouldn't expect managers to say. And of course, they lapped it up and used it to fill column inches and get clicks and so on. And more power to them. He really was a revelation on the media side as well as everything he did for us. But the sort of stoicism and back to sort of meat and potatoes element of how Joey deals with things, I'm finding enjoyable, in that it's not about him. He doesn't want it to be about him. It's not about his own private feelings on certain matters. And I could see he was beaming. I watched all the coverage back when I came home into the wee hours on Wednesday, and you could see, I think particularly was an interview he gave with RTE, where he was beaming from ear to ear and looked really happy and proud, and he refused to talk down the fact that it was 1-0. He didn't want to get sidetracked into the kind of shoulda, woulda, coulda. He was like, we won a game at home in the Champions League. We didn't concede. this is a great result. And it's a great start for him performance wise, and now a couple of wins on the spin, albeit in two different competitions. But we haven't done that since the opening two games of the season. So I hope that his enjoyment is infectious around the camp. It kind of feels like it might be, and that it keeps everybody smiling and rolling into Wednesday feeling absolutely full of the joys, and feeling confident that they can go and get the job done.
So, Donny, to wrap up, will we get the job done, Donny?
You want a binary answer for a binary question?
Yes, but well,
I think we will. I haven't had, even as a born skeptic, I haven't allowed my mind to go into the dark recesses necessary to consider how it might feel sitting on the bus coming back from Belfast, having blown it. I mentioned the percentage chances that the bookies now see us as having. I've seen Dan McDonnell and other members of the media say that we really won't get a better chance than this. That this is a very, very big opportunity, and that if we don't grasp it, we will really, really regret it. And a part of that terrifies me, in that I feel that the fall, were there to be one, would be particularly hard to stomach, and I think we would be laughed at from on high by basically everybody else in League of Ireland circles, and it would be seen as a real dropping of the ball. So I refuse to believe that that's how it will play out. My mind kind of feels it'll go one of two ways. Either we'll score first and pop their balloon a little bit, and it might be easier than I initially thought, but I'll stick with what my initial feeling was, and I think we will go through, but I think the game will be a score draw. I think they'll get a result at home, and it might be a plucky effort, but ultimately we'll have enough to see it through. So I'm hopeful that I'm thinking maybe a 1-1 or a 2-1 is how it'll finish, and I'd be very, very happy, as I said earlier prior to the 1-0 midweek. I'd be very, very happy if I was wrong and it was a 3-0 Shels victory.
That sounds good. Well, it doesn't matter what it takes. All that matters is that we get through. And to the 13 or 1400 Reds, men and women heading north this coming Wednesday, enjoy your evening. Donny, thanks again. We're going to just calm ourselves down now ahead of Wednesday night. It's a big day for the Reds. Let's hope we go into this game fully fired up. I'm sure we will, with Carabag awaiting the eventual winners. Let's continue to dream, Donny. It's
absolutely
great to see Shels back dining at the top table.
And let's get out prior to Wednesday. Let's get out at everyone who can 3:00 on the Richmond Road on Saturday for the march to the ground for the women's game against Bows. Let's take advantage of. We can stay in, put your feet up on the Friday night, and go out, get a beer in the sun in Tolka on Saturday. So,
great time. Great time to be a Reds man and woman. Thanks to everyone who has sent in comments and questions this week. It's been a huge and busy mailbag. And of course, Donny, thank you for your contribution. A very busy day for all Reds out there. So, enjoy Belfast, everyone. And we'll speak to you next week.